Okay, we're in the middle, or at the beginning, of a noreaster, and we've just been told it's going to be about 15 to 30 centimeters of snow with 70 to 90-kilometer winds later tonight. And so this is what it looks like now. I have a little bit of snow settling on my deck right outside the building here. But we'll see what it looks like in the morning if I have time, because with all the snow removal. Okay, I'm going to throw some bowls that I call ramen bowls or noodle bowls, and they're very popular. I sell them as sets sometimes as well as individually, but it seems to be a real thing today to eat out of a bowl, and guess what? My wife and I do too. So, and I just weighed these out, so they're 1 3/4 pounds. Recycled clay is not as plastic as the regular clay, so I have to be careful with it when I stretch out to a wide bowl shape, because it can actually split. Well, I could repair that by just adding some extra ball clay when I recycle my clay, but you know, it's not too bad. I learned to live with it. I just know if I bend this too much, it can split. And when I pull handles with this, it would definitely split. When I bend the handles, put it on the mug. Here's a little air bubble I just popped out. So I'm basically just kind of moving the clay a little bit to compress it, because it's basically not de-aired. My pug mill doesn't de-air. Now it's centered. And for the beginners, I should always do this a little bit for you. It's off center. If you're a beginner, what you have to do is put your hand on the wheel head, rest your elbow on your knee or on the side on the splash pan. Put a brick underneath your foot if you need to lift your leg up a bit higher, and then your hand is rested. And if you've got a wall next to you, you can put your hand next to the wall, and look, you know, you can even just press with one hand and it starts to go on center, because your elbow can't go any further back. All right, so it's off center. You put your top hand on top, and you put your elbow against that wall, or rest on the splash pan, and you put equal pressure with top and side hand, and you make sure you let go slowly. So if it's off center, you put equal pressure with top and side hand. Make sure your arm is supported, the left arm is supported by a wall or your leg, so it can't be pushed. Because most of the problems when people have for centering is that they are allowing their arm to be pushed by the clay. And you don't need to allow that. Force it. Alright, now, if it's a little bit difficult, you should cone. Like, take the clay up, push with hands opposite each other, and do what's called coning. And then push down. Your left hand can't touch the bat yet, but keep pushing down, and as soon as you can touch the bat, you rest your hand on the bat hard against the side wall, and it will center as long as your left arm isn't allowed to be moved. And the top fingers, the way I do it, I like to see half the ball of clay. So I cover half the clay, and I'm watching the other half spin, so I can see as well as feel if it's off center. Okay, putting this, I use my finger and my thumb on that hand, and then I put this finger over that finger to give myself a little extra pressure. And you feel for the center, make a little dimple. If you've got enough water in that dimple, just push down. And don't go too far down. Leave a centimeter at the bottom and pull out. Then, because you just stretch the clay a bit, put your finger at the side of the hole and pull it towards the center. And that compresses the clay in that bottom foot area, so that you shouldn't get any S-cracks. If you feel any kind of softness or irregularity in that center area, do that a couple more times and get rid of that softness or irregularity, because that is going to be possibly making you an S-crack. Alright, now that's all you're going to do on that side. Then you move to this side, put your fingertips opposite each other, and I'm using 3 fingers on the inside and 2 on the outside, and you start at the bottom and you pull the fingers to the top. Don't make it stretch too much at this point, and then let go slowly, and you get to the top and compress it with your finger right on the rim. And that gives you a height that's still, you're able to get your fingers to the bottom on the inside. Those two fingers are important, those two fingers are important. I won't use my little finger this time, but I was using my little finger in the last pull. And then you start by pressing in deep with the outside fingers, and then they're underneath the inside fingers, so they're the last bit that touches the actual clay. The last bit of your hands is the outside hands underneath the inside hands. And I'll leave my hands in that position when I come off the top, and that's what I've got, looking like that. And then water on the rim so it dribbles down inside and outside. And then dig deep again on the outside, and this time we're going to open up a bit more. And come to the top, and now at the top I make the inside fingers push over the top of my outside fingers to give myself a little lip right at the top. And then get all your water out. Yeah, I just sold 4 of these blue bowls, noodle bowls, to one person, so that's all I had made, so I thought that I better make myself a bunch of the blue ones again. And they're all going to Oklahoma. I'm just shipping those out to Oklahoma. The lady was up here for the Christmas holidays from Oklahoma. And then that's just to drag the water off. You can do it a second time if you want to, but you can also shape against that metal rib by pushing out a little bit and supporting with your outside rib. So my inside fingers just press against the actual rib edge and come to the top, and now I can push with my middle finger in the inside and flatten that rim to the rib and then let go slowly. So I've got this nice thing that I can grip to pick the bowl up. Alright, so that's like a little rim that you put on a plate almost, and I like it because it picks the bowl up easily without putting your fingers in somebody's soup and all that. And if you want to have a spiral on the inside, just use your little finger, or any finger really, put it in the center and just pull it out as it's turning slowly, and you can give yourself that little spiral down in there, which will catch the glaze and give you a little interest in your actual bowl. And that is a noodle bowl. Now it's 1 3/4 pounds. It's not very thin. I didn't make this thin. I could have made it much bigger, but I don't like these to be too thin. And then just give yourself a little place to cut through. You can lift these off the bat. They're not too big, but I'm going to use a different bat for each piece just to make sure I don't distort. And if you wanted to, you can use, I've got my own little tool. Oh, there's Freddy's. Oh, my wheel needs a cleaning here too. Okay, this tool, if I can clean it up a bit. Freddy has done Freddy Moretti is a subscriber, and he has made a tool based on something that I designed and made out of wood, and he 3D printed it. You'll be able to see it in a minute. And I have 2 of these. Somewhere there's another one. And, oh, it's a yellow one over there. It's basically, and it depends on the rubber band that you use, but it's just a rubber band in the center there, and you can just hold it on your piece and compress the rim a little bit. And if it wasn't so tight, I've got to get a different rubber band for this one. Like the one I made myself, the wheel here. Okay, you can see what I made. This is made out of wood, so if you don't have a 3D printer, you can just make it out of wood. And my rubber band is looser in the center, so you need to get the rubber band a little bit loose on the other one, so I'll get a bigger rubber band, I guess, and then you put it over the edge, and it will actually compress the rim a little bit. Alright, let's get that up there. Alright, so that's that little tool that Freddy's designed. You'll have to look him up on my subscribers, or I think he has a YouTube channel too called under Freddy Moretti. but he'll probably, I think he's posted it on another website where you can get the plans to do that. But if you don't have a 3D printer, you simply make it out of wood. Alright, so let's see if you can see the profile. So that's what I call a noodle bowl. Okay, the noodle bowls are basically ready to be trimmed, firm enough so that you can't really pull the clay off the bottom there, leather hard in other words. And I have a couple of ways of doing bowls that have uneven rims. I'll show you down here. These ones are not really that uneven, so I don't think I'm going to have to use this method here. But if I had a bowl with a disfigured, sort of cut rim, and I didn't want to sit it on top of the rim, then I made this yogurt carton into a cushiony with some little soft self-adhesive sort of, I think this is like door insulation. But so the bowl can actually sit over the top of that yogurt. And then you sit the bowl on top, and it's centered. So basically, I don't have to worry about the rim getting pressure put on it and then chipping. Like if I had a decorative piece, the rim was important, then I could do it this way. So you're literally just trimming the same way you would normally. And it's called a chuck when you have something like this. I mean, you can make them out of clay. I'm going to make a little line in that one there to do some carving on it. And then, of course, you can take the inside and trim it out. I've got a little bit of pressure put on the actual bowl by my fingers in the center there. Don't want to press too hard because I could cave it in a little bit in the center because it's not that thick on these pieces. I think I left a centimeter. But it's leather hard now. And I like to hollow out the center area of my bowls. And then I can glaze the center if I want to, and just leave the foot unglazed, and a lot of time I stilt my pieces as you've seen. But it gives me the choice, leaving the choice open. And then just kind of get your foot level, give yourself stability when you're trimming so that you're not wobbling around a little bit. And then you can use a brush just to knock out all the trimming areas. And that's it, basically. Now, these bowls are not that uneven, so I didn't need to do this method, but I showed it to you anyway in case it would help you out. Just a yogurt powder. Anyway, I try to trim these because they're not that uneven on the rim, just by doing it like this. With the rubber pads, they hold the rim so they don't damage the rim. And these ones I will do that too because I want to do the actual fluting type of decoration I do on the bottom of these. So that is done just by using the same trimming tool and just moving the wheel around it, a quarter inch each time. I'm just doing these little lines in. And you get better at doing this. At first you'll be very timid. You won't be able to do it very well. You can also do the actual chattering. There you go. Get that off. It was more centered when I put it on the yogurt carton. But that's because the rim on these pieces has been changed, because I did the chopsticks go across here, so I've changed the rim so it doesn't center up as easily when you do that. But that's how I trim them, and I do that little decoration to catch the glaze on the underside there. And now these are finished, they'll go into bisque firing, and I'll show you glazing them. I have about 200 grams here, and I have 1,200 grams here, and I'm going to make berry bowls, colanders, as you would say. Depends on where you live. And takes a month, just under to get things out of the kiln, usually 2 or 3 weeks, but hey, spring is just around the corner. So it's like, got to think ahead as a potter. Probably got some junk in it as well, so we'll see what it's like. It's fairly firm too. I do not de-air my pugged clay, it's just pugged through 3 times. So look, elbow on the wall here. As you get older, you need to be able to get a bit more strength in there, and you can rest on the splash pan, or you can wedge your elbow into a solid object. and that's easier for centering. You can almost just do it with one hand if you actually have something behind your elbow so it can't be moved. It's obviously a little easier if you use two hands. But anyway, cone it up, push it down. Do that a couple of times if you're just trying to get a feel for the clay. So cone it so it's a dome before you do the coning, and then push the heels of your hands together and you get it coned. You can make that really tall if you want to, but you're just trying to get it up tall to a narrow point and then push it back down and push it over a little bit as well, so the little cone is bending a bit. And then when you come back down to center, elbow locked in, resting on the splash pan too, little finger on the wheel where you see the wheel is clean. That's actually showing that I'm touching the base of the clay right at the wheel point, and then that's centered. So finger contact to support both hands, point, feel for the center, and don't put a big hole until you know you're perfectly centered and you don't see any wobble. And then you can make a bigger push, go right down and leave about 1.5 centimeters off the bottom of these ones, because you're going to trim the foot a little bit and put some holes in the bottom, and you want the water to be able to get out. So I always make the thickness of the base a little thicker in these. And see what I'm doing? I'm squishing the clay from the outer edge to the center to compress that center point. Wet the whole thing right on the edge. You can use a sponge to do that, so you're dripping water right on the edge, and it goes down inside and outside. Fingers over this side, and then push in with your outside fingers until you see it rise up a little bit, and then bring both inside and outside fingers up, and make sure it doesn't dry out, so you go fast enough so you can actually reach the rim without it drying out too much. And then dribble the water down both sides, inside and outside again, so that it actually gets in and out, and then do the same thing again. Push deep with your outside fingers. Inside fingers are pushing back a little bit, and the inside fingers are higher than the outside fingers, so we basically got that little lump you can see of a shelf of clay over my fingers on the outside, because that's where my inside fingers are pushing the clay. But by having the outside fingers touch the clay last, I'm controlling how wide the piece gets. If your inside fingers touch the clay last, it'll get wider. Alright, water right on the rim, same again, push in deep, and then you're going to push out with your inside fingers this time to make a wide bowl. And then let go slowly as you get to the rim, because I want to keep a fairly thick area at the rim. And then opened out a little bit, let go slowly. A colander needs to take some banging. Not too much, hopefully, but a little bit of, banging on the sink to kind of shake the water down. So you don't want to make them thin. Then you use your wooden tool, just that little wooden tool, push in a touch to give yourself a place to cut through with the wire. Just takes a little bit of clay off. And then you use your metal tool. Grab any clay off it that's on there. And I'm pushing it up, I'm bending it like this, so it forms a curve, and then pressing the clay from the inside towards that curve. And when I get to the top, I push the lip over the rib to make a slightly wider top there. Just like I did with the actual noodle bowls, which is why I thought this would be a good follow-up video. The noodle bowls, of course, were only about half the size of this ball of clay. Dragging the water off the side wall down on the inside. Just a little bit off. Okay, and that's pretty much the shape that we want. Now I'm going to be drilling holes all the way up this when I actually do that part of the process so that it's loose, and so it'll fold over the rim and form that shape, and it doesn't take as much clay off there, and it compresses the rim a little bit. There's something there though, so and then just take off any little bits of clay. This is a groggy type clay here, so I'm going to use that. On my porcelains I don't use that tool, but on this clay I like to compress the rim a little bit. And if you want, you can put a spiral in the bottom, just put your finger in there and just pull it out a little bit. It's not necessary because you can have a lot of holes in this which tend to give it the attention. And there's a little bit of foreign matter inside that bowl. You can see a little white dot, and that's a bit of plastic, I think, from somewhere. But there's the bigger version of the bowl yesterday. But I'm not thinning it, it's fairly thick. So how wide is that? It's about 10 inches wide, I would say. Emergency. There you go. You never know when you have a pottery emergency. That's why I open up my showroom even though we don't man it. I have a camera so I can see if somebody goes in there. And people know the routine here. They just call me. The phone number's on the wall. They just call me and tell me to come and sell them a pot. When you live in rural areas, you can do that, I guess. Okay, so this is a centered ball of clay. I need it to be a flat pancake almost, because this is going to be like a small plate. And then my rubber rib, which I don't need really, but you could actually just make sure that's really flat down there. The bowl is going to have a foot that's going to be deep so the water can drain out easily, and then I simply put my little finger underneath and pull my finger from the inside over my little finger to lift up the edge a little bit and open it up a bit more, and that's enough to catch a little bit of water underneath the berry bowl. So that's the easy part. And then, just to make the wire cut through a little easier, just do that. And there you go. Put a spiral in if you want. You don't have to do this, but if you want a little spiral. Catches the eye a little bit when people are looking at them. And then if you want to make that rim a little bit compressed, you just use the tool on that. The slip is coming off there on the outside edge of the bowl. And that's that. I'm actually making some little rope handles for these berry bowls. So I'm just rolling a coil the old-fashioned way. I have a machine that will make these, but I always feel like it's nice to make them. It doesn't take hardly any time to do it. So it's just the same clay, it's recycled clay. I kneaded it a little bit, wedged it. So it's a bit more pliable. But it's quite dry. So I'm probably going to give it a bit of a spray with some moisture. Coil is cracking a little bit as I'm rolling it. Cut off the ends. And I just need little handles, which I'm going to roll a bit more. Cut them the same size. I have a lot of berry bowls, as you can see from behind me here. They're all there waiting to be put handles on. And it's getting dark, so I'm running late tonight. And so these, I now try it this way first. I think I might have to roll these a little bit longer, but we'll try doing it with it. Ooh, there we go. It's just the corner of the stick. Yeah, I probably should roll them a bit longer in the other ones. So by the corner of the stick, it makes you feel like you're looking at a piece of rope. Get them about the same length. That's got to go a little bit more. Yeah, that's not so bad. Spray the end. Now hold them and keep them moist until you're ready to use them. These little bits of clay which I cut off the ends, I can simply roll into little buttons, because I need 4 buttons for each piece basically. And then from one ball, like a marble, you can cut 2 the same size. This one's a bit smaller, so I'll probably use that on a different piece. But I can actually also roll the coil out like this, square the end up again, and then instead of the marble, if you're really accurate and it's ready to have a stick like that, you can then cut here and you've got little buttons instantly. I'm just getting onto the actual piece of wood there so that the tool cuts right to the bottom. Ooh, wants to go for a walk. And that one's a bit big, but I'll leave it. And then I can keep all those that are on the table. I've all my buttons made, and I have these coils. So what kind of handle do we want on this? We can have anything we want, basically. So this clay was thrown just a little while ago. I mean, less than 2 hours ago. So I'm just wetting underneath the rim a little bit. If you want to, you can just wet the whole length of the coil just a tiny bit. And then just move it backwards and forwards so you feel like it's stuck, and then put your finger on the inside and then just give your thumb some pressure and roll it. Same on this side. A little bit of pressure. So you're moving it on the surface of the bowl. You would not actually moving it around much, but you're just giving it a little friction to make it stick. And that handle is a nice little rope handle that gives you a place to grip hold of the colander, which is not really necessary. And then if you want to, you can just wet the actual inside of your handle bit there, stick that little button, and just give yourself a little pressure, and then using whatever stamp you have for yourself, you should make yourself a nice little stamp. It's always yours, and it's on all your pieces that people know it's your work then, without even looking at the bottom. And then you can just brush it a little bit just to get rid of any nasty. And then a good thing to do is to put a stick across the piece so that you know where the other handle has to go. And then you can do the same little wetting, just so that it's going to have a little slip on the surface, so that the piece that you're going to put on there, and you can just go and do that again, put some water backwards and forwards if you want, so that you can actually put that right up to your stick and bend it around. Make sure it's in the right place. Just move it a tiny bit. We can take that off now. We've got that. And take a look to make sure that it's not high or low. It's got to be just about the same as the one on the other side. And then I'm putting pressure on, I'm doing a little rotating with my thumb to make that move the clay a little bit. Same on this side. so that handle is definitely stuck. And then check your insides, because you always, with that amount of pressure, you're going to make a little mark on the inside. Then you can just brush that away. Alright, and then do your same 2 little buttons. Make sure everything stays moist. A little water inside there, a little water inside there. You don't need it on the button itself, because that will just adhere. And this is optional, you don't need to do this. It's just that my work always has this little round spiral on it that I actually started doing decades ago, and now, like I said, people can recognize your pieces from something that you put on them. It could be the shape of a little tree, which is my friend in Mike Baum in Cincinnati does that. I don't know if he still does it or not, but I think he has a tree as his stamp. I think Baum in German may say tree or something. Alright, so we got 2 handles. Doesn't take long at all. Make sure that it didn't distort the rim too much. You can turn it upside down and then that will be perfectly flat anyway. We now have to trim and put the holes in those berry bowls, colanders. This is the video I'm doing called Lipped Bowls, and it's a nice thing because a colander, if it has a flat lip at the top, you can hold it by that, but I put handles on them anyway, as you saw earlier on. So they're ready for trimming. Let's get you down here. I just trimmed one to make sure they're ready. Okay. So this is a Giffin grip, if you haven't seen one before. And they're perfect because there's no bendable, it's not plastic at all at the rim, or at the foot, sorry. Alright, so tightening up with the Giffin grip. I did a whole video on the Giffin grip if you want to look back at that. The trimmings, if you trim full speed, will fly right off, so you don't have to keep cleaning your tool up. Put a nice big foot on. Now I don't want these are heavier the balls than I normally make because people are going to bang these down to make the water drip off. And this is recycled clay, which is why you see those lines spinning around. That's a piece of grit, probably rock salt from the snow the other day. But anyway, can you see what's going on here? Let's pull you a little closer maybe. So I'm taking it down to give myself a deep foot. I left a centimetre and a half in these at the bottom just so I could make a deep foot, because I like to be able to allow the water to drip out of the bowl and not get stuck in the foot area, so it's sitting in a pool of water. It can't get away. So what I do is I trim like a shallow recessed area. Keep a paintbrush handy so you can get your little trimming bits out. Alright, and then so it's a nice deep foot. What I do is using the trimming tool, let's see if we can get you even closer, because this, see the inside foot is, I push it in, turn it around and skip it out, and then make a gouge, and you can do 3, 4 of these, whatever you want to do. But it allows the water to get out, because it's sitting on a plate, but it allows the water to get out instead of just sitting all built up in there. And then you just use the brush to get rid of the little burr that might be left, if there is one. If it's dry enough clay, there's really not much of a burr there. And that allows the water that comes out of the bowl to drip out into the rest of the plate, instead of just being trapped underneath where the foot is. And then putting the holes in, I have done something with berry bowls in the past. I use my drill just with a masonry bit in actually, but and it should be dry enough so that then using your brush, the debris should just fall off, because if it sticks it means the clay was too wet when you did that. And this is, like I said, this is borderline, so it's coming off. But I could have left these a touch longer. But you can see there's nothing left in the holes here. It fell out, which is what you want it to do. And I brushed physically very hard just to soften any edges that might be left from the actual drill. And then the inside, there may still be some left, yep. So then you just do that. And physically really brush hard so that you have got no burrs left on those lines. And the glaze will soften all the lines a little bit anyway. Alright. Okay, if the clay is absolutely perfect, you can use a metal rib that's worn out, as you can see, and this will trim. As you can see, the trimmings come right off, and this is very sharp as a metal rib. And if you're worried about holding it because it's a bit sharp when you're holding it at the other side, you can just put some duct tape over it. Ah, it's another use for duct tape. But anyway, I trim with these all the time, but you have to do it when it's really what I call a dry leather hard. And then you do the inside as well. Let's see if you can see a bit easier. It's hard. You can do it over there maybe. See the trimmings coming off? It's hard for me to hold it when it's actually at that angle because I'm not resting my arm on anything. But the trimmings are just coming right off. Really easy. I have to go back like this because it's too hard. So basically, this is recycled clay. You just saw a pebble chunk out there. You can hear it ticking, I think, when you hit a little stone or something. So I love to trim when the clay is this hard. The trimmings just fly right off. There's nothing sticking to the tool. And then knock off any corners. I can make that a little thinner since I'm going to have it as a foot for a berry bowl, just to raise it up a bit. Alright, and then same again here, if you want to notch out just a little bit so the water can leak out from underneath. And then, because the clay is perfect now, you can take the drill so now there's absolutely nothing stuck anywhere. So it's all about timing. It can make your job a lot easier if you just, this is just a Japanese brush, but that just makes sure there's nothing sharp. It's always rub your hand over it. And then on the inside, where there was a lot of debris stuck last time, the clay was too soft, practically nothing, and they just wipe instantly off. There you go. So basically, Much easier when you get the clay in the right condition. I've got a few pieces to unload out of the kiln. Just to add this little snippet to whatever video I put it in. I've got a bunch of tests that I've been doing with Tenmaku Gold, and the kiln has been doing some of those, but this is just a series of berry balls fired to 2210 Fahrenheit, so it's below cone 6. I would say that's the cone 6 was probably barely bending in this one, but cone 5 would have been over. But take a look at that line between the green and the oatmeal. Isn't that pretty? Got like this little gold edge to that green. Very nice. These are little plates for the berry balls. So there you go. Nice for spring. Think about spring berries. These are, oh wow. This is apple green with my yellow oatmeal over the upper edge. You can tell because it's dipped over the edge a little bit. You can see yellow coming in a little bit up there. And that's my oatmeal inside. And a little bit of bat wash there. Sand that off. But yeah, look at the texture of that green. Really pretty. There's my oatmeal, yellow oatmeal. So there's 3 colors on there with the apple green. So oatmeal, yellow oatmeal from the top, and then apple green dipped over the top of that. All these recipes are published in previous videos, so you can check into them. Look how that one ran. Oh, it ran. Oh yeah, it did. It ran. I've got to sand that bit off there, but you can see the drips running right down there. So that's maybe too thick with the apple green, but it's got the yellow oatmeal over there. But I like it when you drip and you don't actually get to touch the kiln shelf, but I can sand that bit right off, and then oatmeal on the inside. I usually make 4 of these at a time, because people actually do buy 4 at a time. This is the dark blue with variegated blue or bright blue, I can't remember, and oatmeal over the top. So that dark blue over my recycled clay comes out black, and that's kind of cool. You can see blue in it. I'm not sure if you can catch that in the filming, but there is, it's almost black, but it's a really blue black, darkest blue. There must be another one because there's the tray for it. This is recycled clay. That's why I fired it down to 2210, because the recycled clay tends to bloat a little bit if you go to cut a full cone 6. The recycled clay has everything in my studio off the floor in it, including salt chips sometimes, but that's pretty. Dark blue is not my favorite. I prefer the bright blue, but that'll be a nice contrast in the display in the gallery, I think. Here is the bright blue, which I prefer. It's got some dark blue on it with oatmeal as well. I always think ahead to the next season, so I'm building inventory now for when people start to berry pick again, but a smaller version of it. Must be a green one coming out. Ooh, yes, there's a green one, and a really pretty green one too. Got lots of greens in there. Didn't run, which is nice because the other ones were running, but almost, but not quite to the kiln shelf. Pretty nice. These little notches out so the water drips out and gets out. Instead of sitting underneath where the foot is, you can get it out a bit. But those are pretty berry balls. And of course you can, now we get berries all year long, so All of them, this come from South America all the way across the planet and all that. That's nice the way it ran across folk art white. So apple green over folk art white. That's a nice effect. Wow, did it run? Yeah, that's interesting. So folk art white makes it run. So I've got to remember not to dip it too far down. But that's a really pretty berry ball. And there's another one of it here. Same as the folk art white with apple green. Oh, and of course a few mugs. These are really buttery. That should brighten up any kitchen. Really pretty colors. Nice greens. Look at the, I hope the light catches that nice, really nice variation in that green. Yeah, I actually did folk art white and apple green, but I might have some of my yellow in there. I'm not sure. That's just sunshine yellow mason staining my basic oatmeal to give it a yellow tint. Yellow's a hard color to get in just making it from glaze. So using Stowel, look at that run. That was close. That's nice. I tried something new. I wiped the glaze off the rim so that the rim of the pot is just the natural clay with the glaze being wiped off. And you get that toasty brown, almost a wood fire kiln look. So that's very pretty. I like doing that. And then you've got the yellow oatmeal plus the turquoise and the same on the outside. So I wonder, it's such a sheen on the clay. Look at that. Once the glaze has been on it and then wiped off, you always leave a little residue probably, even though it looked pretty clean, but it made the clay have a nice sheen. So, something new. It looks very pretty with those colors together. And then the rest of the kiln is some more mugs, and it looks to me like they're all in that color. The apple green, oatmeal, folk art white, and my regular oatmeal on the bottom, and then the turquoise with the yellow oatmeal over the top. I would say this is my beach piece because it looks like the beach in the water. I want to show you one thing I've just noticed from a distance. I get little blowouts occasionally. That's salt, I think, coming in from outside. In the winter I get more of those. I'm sure it's just little salt pellets that get mixed into my clay off our shoes. But you know, it's actually not sharp, so I probably will knock a little bit off because of that. But that's a nice mug too. And the rest are all the same. I did 6 of every mug in these colors. There's the apple green and folk art white, running where the handle is, but just enough. So 2210 stopped it going onto the kiln shelf. So when I know I've got variegated blue is a real big one for that, and folk art white with apple green does it. But the yellow edging just below the green is very pretty the way it did that. So, okay. So this is like a little add-on to another video wherever I put it. It's a noreaster outside. The power's been off most of the morning, but it just came on, which is why I decided to unload this. It's the second noreaster in less than a week. So this one is not typically a noreaster because the wind is coming out of the south, but it will turn later on and come in from the east as the storm passes. But anyway, that was nasty to see the ocean starting to freeze outside. It was -18 the other night, centigrade. All right, take care.